Hey everybody, welcome to my home one more time. This is Maxine Taylor with my Trumpology report for January 2019. Today is December 31st. I want to wish everybody a wonderful 2019, a wonderful new year, and to mention to you that if you have not yet taken advantage of my New Year special, you're going to want to do it. Just go to my website, MaxineTaylor.com. It's right there on the front page. It's the best one I've ever offered. I'm offering 3 different readings at incredibly affordable prices because I want everybody to be able to have their forecast for the coming year, because we have, well, we start the year with 2 eclipses in January. The first one is on the 5th. And so we want to make sure that we know what's going on in our own lives. I'm going to share with you what's going on in Trump's chart, in the United States chart, and in our new Congress chart. Got a lot to share with you. So let me start with Trump. Here we go. And I'm going to need my glasses so I can be accurate. Now, what I'm going to share with you may be a little bit advanced for some of you. If it is, just listen to the interpretation, okay? Listen to what I'm saying rather than the aspects. I know there are many astrologers out there and astrology students who really appreciate me giving the astrological reasons for what I'm saying. So I'm hoping that everybody is satisfied. Now, I'm not asking much, right? So let's look, first of all, at the path of the sun in Trump's chart. It starts in his 5th house of children and sex and fun. And those 3 areas are very strongly activated in his life. They have been. His children are very important to him. This is the area of speculation, taking a chance, having fun. And because of Mueller and all of the interviews that he's had, his children are, of course, involved. And we may hear more about that. In fact, I'm sure we'll hear more about that as January moves along. And of course, when Mueller makes his report, I will, of course, be sharing everything with you once he does that. Okay, so it starts in the 5th house of fun. And on the 21st, the sun moves into his 6th house of work, health, and employees. And the sun is the giver of life. It brings things alive. And traditionally, if you're having a health issue or a health problem, and the sun comes along in your 6th house, the healing can begin. I think what I'm looking at here, and we'll just have to see, the 6th house deals with our employees. And we know that Trump has hired and fired and hired and fired. And he should be getting successful in hiring with the sun in the 6th house. That's what I'm trying to say. Whereas people may not have wanted to be in his cabinet or have a cabinet appointment, I think after the 21st, things should pick up for him there. Okay, that's the sun. Now, let's talk about the eclipses, because they're real important. We start our month with January with 2 of them. Now, let me remind you, we feel the effects of an eclipse about a week before it occurs, which means we're feeling them now, even though we're in the dark of the moon, okay? Well, actually, we will be out of the dark of the moon on the 5th when the eclipse occurs. But that, for the few days before that, we're in the dark of the moon. And of course, Congress the new Congress is going to be sworn in and will begin their work on the 3rd during the dark of the moon. I don't think that's going to slow them down any, though. Got a lot to share with you about that. But I want to describe the eclipses. So we feel them about a week before they occur, which means we're feeling them now. Trump is feeling them now. They're at their peak 3 to 4 months after they occur. So this means April and May. They'll be at their peak. But we continue to feel them until the next pair come along, because they usually occur in pairs. All right, here we go. I'm going to watch my notes very, very carefully because there's so much I want to tell you. First of all, the new moon, the solar eclipse, is on January 5th. And this is, okay, this is, I didn't bring a pen. Right here in the 5th house. Whenever we have a solar eclipse, whenever we have a new moon, that's what this is, a new moon, a solar eclipse. That's when things start moving forward. And so with it in his 5th house, the whole situation with his children, with sex, with games of all sorts, starts moving forward. Now, the full moon is a lunar eclipse. It's, I didn't give you the degree for the new moon, for the solar eclipse. It's 15 Capricorn 25. Now, this new moon, this solar eclipse, is in opposition to his Mercury Saturn midpoint. And it's squaring his Jupiter. And what I'm going to do is mess up this chart for a minute. So here's the eclipse in opposition to the Mercury Saturn midpoint and squaring Jupiter. The empty arm of this, I just messed up that little arrow. The empty arm of that T cross is the 8th house. Now, that means the energy from the eclipse in his 5th, which is bringing to light bringing to light situations involving sex and children and speculation, taking a chance, and just plain old fun. It squares his Jupiter, which brings abundance when it comes to money, in his case. And it triggers a very serious attitude when it comes to Congress, any type of group, his friends, friendship of all types. And what happens is the energy from this T-cross empties into the 8th house of secrets, death, sex, anything that is undercover, anything that involves other people's money or just plain old secrets. So the focus is there. However, and this is where it gets really interesting, Mars fills in that empty arm of the T-cross, creating a grand square. Mars is action. Mars kicks things forward. Mars is what we throw ourselves into. And so there's a great deal of activity on his part that deals with sex, with other people's money, and secrets across the board. It will kick that T-cross into action, and Mars will fill in that T-cross triggered by the new moon from January 8th until February 5th. All right. I'm going to look at it in Congress's chart and in the United States chart as well. This is very important. Now, we have a lunar eclipse on January 20th or 21st, depending on where you live. In the Eastern time zone, it's shortly after midnight, which means in Central, Mountain, and Pacific, it will be, of course, on the 20th. Wherever you live around the world, it will be either the 20th or the 21st. So this particular lunar eclipse is a supermoon. It's called that because it's closest to the center of the earth. It's bigger because we can see more of it because it's closer to the center of the earth. All right, this full moon sits on the cusp of Trump's 12th house. And we know that the 12th house is all kinds of behind the scenes activities, hidden enemies, things that we don't want people to know about. The full moon brings them to life. That's what we've got going on. And that full moon is 0 degrees, actually it's 0 Leo 52. Let's call it 1 degree of Leo, which is right on Trump's 12th cusp. So there's a lot of secrecy, a lot of things going on. All right, that's number one. Let's look at Mercury. Mercury is what we think about and talk about. It's the ability, it's not like Mars that shoots energy forward, so to speak. It's just, let's think about it, let's talk about it over a latte, that kind of thing. Mercury starts off in Trump's 4th house. So he's thinking about his family, he's talking about his family. He's also looking at real estate because it's the real estate around the world that Mueller is looking at, or at least the plans for real estate holdings around the world. So on the 4th, the day before the first eclipse, Mercury moves into Trump's 5th house. Sex, children, fun, speculation, sports. On the 19th, it sits on his vertex. Now, the vertex is your karmic role in life. And so we're just going to have to wait and see how this shakes out. But you can see that there's lots of action there, lots of activity, lots of talking. And then on the 24th of January, Mercury moves into his 6th house, once again, of employees, of health. And because the sun and Mercury are in that 6th house of employees, he may find that he's able to hire somebody, or maybe more than one somebody. But there may be investigations into his employees as well. You hear what I'm saying. Now, Venus, the planet of love and beauty and money, sits in Trump's 4th house of home and family and real estate all month. It's quite beautiful. The only issue is it sits on his south node and his moon on the 26th and 27th. This can be overindulgence when it comes to family, when it comes to real estate, when it comes to his home. Venus is the lesser benefic, and so yes, there'll be an overindulgence at some point, but it brings the good stuff. So we have to wait and see how that shakes out. All right, that's Trump. Now, excuse you while I get a little more organized here. With 3 charts, it's a lot. Let's do the USA chart, and then I'll talk about Congress. I have a lot of information that I'm going to share with you going forward on Trump and the White House and all kind of things. When the time is appropriate, I will show you exactly what I've seen. Excuse me, exactly what I've seen and how I interpret it. I promise. Okay. So let's look at the countries chart. I'm sorry for shaking this screen, but I put the real chart under my laptop so I can read it along with all this other information. Okay. Let's start with the sun in the USA chart, shall we? And I've got to add something here. I'm waiting because I didn't want to clutter the chart. It looks very busy to the non-astrologer. To those of you who study astrology, it's not busy, but I am going to add something in a minute. So we start with the sun in the United States chart. And right now, it's in the 8th house of the treasurer of our country, debts. Did I mention debts? Escrow, taxes, financial losses, and secrets, and the death toll. Everything is covered right there. On the 12th, after the new moon, and I'm going to go into that in a second, it enters our 9th house. This deals with the upper courts, foreign travel, foreign trade, higher education, religion. You know, we've had scandals coming up again with the clergy abusing children, advertising, insurance policies, world trade, universities, just everything dealing with those at a distance. Now, the sun sits on Pluto on the 17th. I've been watching Pluto, as some of you know, because Pluto is all or nothing. It is explosive when it goes. It is the planet of control or total transformation. I am really hoping that the sun on Pluto helps our foreign trade agreements. It should, because after all, the sun is the giver of life. Now, remember that T-cross we talked about? Okay, let me talk about right now the new moon, the solar eclipse on the 5th. Remember that this is where things start moving forward. This is in the 8th house of the treasurer, debts, escrow, taxes, losses, death, and secrets. There we go. And remember that we're already feeling it to a certain degree. And this eclipse is going to be with us until July. It's going to be at its peak in the springtime. So we've got the new moon. It forms a square to Saturn in our 5th house of children, sex, gambling, fun, sports, congressional and public hearings, and teachers. Now, Saturn is reality. It brings reality. It crystallizes that area of the chart, that area of our lives. The sun, and of course the solar eclipse, opposes our natal sun. Now, the sun in our 2nd house brings us money. The 2nd house deals with our earning power, our savings, our finances. It is the stock exchange. Hello. Banks, debts, and it's personal debt, the personal debts of the citizens. So we have a T cross formed right here. And I'm going to mess up this chart a little bit here. There's the T cross. The empty arm is where the energy races to go. In the 11th house, in the United States chart, this deals with, the 11th house deals with Congress, congressmen, legislation, the Treasury, city and county councils, and friends. Look at here. Mars fills in that T cross. Congress starts acting. Not that it's going to wait until then, but when Mars fills in that T cross, we can expect a good bit of action and energy from Congress. It fills it in from the 17th till the 22nd. Interesting. Let's look at Mercury. Now, Mercury is what we think about and talk about. It's in the 7th house of partnerships, of contracts, our allies, our open enemies. The 12th house is our hidden enemies. This deals with our open enemies. It's international affairs. It deals with the public, war, lawsuits, politics, marriage, divorce, and the lower courts. It's a lot to deal with. It's only there till the 5th. Then it enters the good old 8th house of secrets, sex, transformation, keeping things hidden. Well, if Mercury is there, they're not hidden. We're thinking about them. We're talking about them. And then Mercury on the 18th moves into the 9th house, and it sits on Pluto on the 22nd. And remember, Pluto is all or nothing. And the 9th house deals with the upper courts, which I've mentioned, foreign trade, foreign travel, our philosophy of life, universities. There can be issues with universities, but it's world trade as far as we are concerned. Very important. Okay, so much for that. Now, let's look at Venus. Now, Mars is up here. I put this in the 11th house because I just wanted to remind myself, if I hadn't already covered it, to go over the T-cross. But Congress is activated. And look at lovely lovely Venus, which rules Libra and Taurus. That's a double rulership. It's in the 6th house of the military, our health, our jobs. Remember, this is the lesser benefic. This is the one that brings the good stuff. Civil servants of all kinds. It brings loveliness. It brings beauty. Pets, food. Now remember, world trade, international trade, importing and exporting is going to have an impact on our food. It's going to have an impact on our workers too. Our pets, and of course, police and fire and all that good stuff. On the 14th, Venus moves into our 7th house and brings a love, a beauty. It brings niceness, political correctness to our international affairs, lawsuits, politics, contracts, and the public. So at this point, there is something that's going on in those areas that will bring happiness to at least a portion of the public. That's what's going on in the United States chart. All right. Last but not least, and I'm sorry again for shaking this camera, we got a new Congress. Now, the new Congress is scheduled to start at noon on January 3rd. If there's a change in the time, this chart will not be accurate. But I'm assuming that because it's carved in stone right now, it's going to happen at that time, noon, January 3rd, 2019, Washington, D.C., of course. So let me explain this chart. When you cast this chart, astrologers, please note there are no oppositions in the chart. An opposition, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, is an aspect of either balance and harmony or separation, but it allows you to put yourself in the other person's place. Without an opposition here, Congress is not putting itself in anybody else's place. It's doing its thing, okay? And this is quite a powerful 10th house. This 10th house is the leadership of Congress. Those who are in a position of responsibility and power. Of course, you say, well, all the congressmen and congresswomen are. This is the leadership. We have Capricorn on the midheaven. We have Saturn, which rules Capricorn, in Capricorn on the midheaven. We have the Sun in Capricorn. We have Pluto in Capricorn, and we have the South Node in Capricorn. This is a very traditional leadership that we're looking at here. The Sun represents men. Saturn represents older people. Hello. Pluto is the planet of either control or total out with the old, in with the new. It can be transformation, total transformation. And the South Node, in a lot of astrology books, paints a very negative picture. I don't necessarily agree with that, and I'm going to tell you why. The South Node is the South Node of the moon, and therefore it deals with the past. So the South Node represents those things which we have mastered in past lives. And so this whole leadership crew up here has not only known each other before, but is setting a tone that has been set before. Pluto being up there, though, that's the tricky part. So it means that the leaders take their responsibility, Saturn, that they are comfortable with leadership, they're in the limelight, the Sun, and that issues of control are going to come up. Now I'm going to jump over here to the 8th house simply because Pluto rules Scorpio, and Scorpio's on the 8th house. We have Venus. I tried putting these in different colors and it just got really busy. Venus is in the 8th house in Scorpio. The 8th house deals with all of our secrets. Think of the United States chart. This is the area of debts, of taxes, of sex, anything that is a secret, anything that is hidden. Venus brings love to it, positive energy to it. And with this 8th house activated, particularly with Jupiter, which is truth, and in Sag, and the moon, which is in Sag also. There's going to be an expansion. We're going to be looking at this stuff, and there are going to be secrets that are revealed that do come to light. It's the light of the moon, it's the light of Venus, and Jupiter is truth. The moon in Sagittarius is truth also. I want to mention that Venus and the moon represent women. And there is a very strong, obviously, we've all, followed the midterms, contingent of women in Congress now that are going to be working privately, quietly, in the areas I've talked about. Now, Mercury's in Sagittarius also. And so this area does also deal with international law. It deals with international trade. But the big thing here is taxes and debts. It's going to be very interesting to watch this. Okay. Look at this 12th house. This is the house of hidden enemies. This is secrets, behind the scenes activities. We have the Alpha and the Omega there. We have Mars in Aries, 1 degree of Aries, and Neptune in Pisces, 14 degrees of Pisces. Both Neptune and Mars are in their own sign, so they're really strong. Neptune is, oh, I'm dreamy, I'm divinely inspired. Mars says, let's get going now. Now, they are not conjunct. And so there can be a division in our Congress when it comes to looking at things and hiding them versus fighting behind the scenes for what we want. We have an Aries ascendant that says, go get them. Mars rules Aries. We're going to go get them privately and quietly. This is the house of our hidden enemies. And it can be that there are alliances made in Congress that we're not aware of necessarily. I mean, there are always deals being made. We know that. But look at this Uranus in the first house. Uranus is the rebel. This is the personality, the attitude, the tone of Congress. It's let's hit the ground running and get going. And we will, absolutely. Uranus is squared to the nodes. And the T-cross formed here. I don't want to mess this chart up, but the nodes are in opposition and Uranus is squaring them. The empty arm of this T-cross is the 7th house of alliances, which I'm hoping means that there will be across the aisle cooperation. However, we're dealing with our open enemies as well as our allies. We have, in the past year, changed our tone toward our allies and have invited people who had been our enemies. These are our open enemies. 12th house are hidden enemies. Our open enemies to be our allies. And I think that this has been very unsettling to the country. So Congress is going to deal with that. Of course they are. And the North Node is in the 4th house of land, homes, the weather, climate, global warming. With the North Node there can be a lot of progress made when it comes to our homes, our crops, the farmers. I mean, this does not deal necessarily with farmers, but the 4th house does because they deal with our land. They deal with our crops. And when we think of land, it is the protection of our land with a North Node there. Very interesting. The vertex is in our 6th house. of workers, the health of our country, the health of our nation, the health of the Congress. This can deal with our employees, but most importantly, the sixth house is the house of service. The 12th house is behind the scenes service. The sixth house is actual work to get things moving. And with a vertex there can be benefit to civil servants. I would hope so. Our government is shut down right now, so I would certainly hope so. Now, let me talk just briefly about where the eclipses fall in the congressional chart. The first eclipse on the 5th of January, which is 2 days after Congress convenes, is right up there on the midheaven, on Saturn, on the Sun, and on Pluto. And so a grand light is shown, not just on Congress, but the leadership of our Congress. And it's going to be very interesting to see how Saturn, which is tradition, and of course Capricorn is too, and Pluto that wants out with the old, in with the new, seeing how that shakes out. Then the full moon, which is the lunar eclipse, the new moon, which is the solar eclipse, the full moon, the supermoon, sits on our north node in our 4th house. And this is really helpful. Once again, we've got the full moon, the lunar eclipse on the north node, opposing the south node, squaring Uranus. It empties into that 7th house, and Mars fills in that T-cross. So I'm hoping that the spirit of cooperation, that is the 7th house, working, balancing, will kick in, and that Mars sitting there will also help enormously, because Mars is going to be there. I'll tell you exactly when it's going to be there. Mars is going to kick in, believe it or not, in February on the 10th, 11th, and the 12th. I'm using a Rosicrucian ephemeris for those of you who are wondering what I'm looking at. That's when it fills in the T-cross. Now, Mars, of course, is going to begin squaring that 10th house pretty much right away by mid-January, the 15th. When it starts squaring the midheaven and then squares Saturn and the Sun and Pluto, and then it squares the nodes and Uranus, which empties into the 7th house in February. So I'm kind of thinking there might be a certain amount of volatility in our Congress, because the rebel Uranus is sitting in that 1st house. And that is the attitude of our Congress, not the leadership, but the whole Congress. So fasten your seatbelts. We're in for a great ride. And I hope that I've made sense today. There's so much going on with 3 charts, 2 eclipses, and Mars just sitting there waiting to kick things forward. I hope that this is helpful, and I look forward to more Trumpology reports. I want to share this with you. When I first began my Trumpology reports, it was during when the candidates were running for president a couple of years ago, and I figured I'd do every month or two, a report on Trump. Well, it turned out to be a roller coaster ride right from the get-go. And now I do it every month. I don't do charts on a lot of the appointees because, as we know, that revolving door has had them in and out so quickly, some of them, that I can't keep track of them. But the news cycles are really going quickly. So I may be doing more Trumpology reports more often as the new Congress takes over. We're waiting for Mueller. There are a lot of things ready to happen. So I will share them all with you astrologically. And until whenever I do another video, thank you all so much for your support and your friendship. And may the stars shine brightly on you and yours this year. Bye for now.